Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about measures of variation. So, what's a measure of variation? Measure of variation is a measure that describes the distribution of a data set. Probably the simplest one to find is called a data set's range. The range of the data is just the difference between the greatest value and the least value. So, here we have the following data points are the lengths of Burmese pythons captured for a study. Find the range of the data. So here's what we do. We've got all these different sizes of snakes here. The first thing we do is we find the smallest one. That's that one. It was only 5 feet long. Then we find the largest one, which would be that one right there at 18.5. So we take the 18.5, we subtract the 5, that leaves 13.5. That's the range. Okay, it has a range of 13.5 feet. Very, very simple to do. Should never miss that question. Okay? Now, I would suggest anytime you have data like this that you put it in order from smallest to largest to start with, because some of the stuff that we're going to do with this, it just makes it easier to deal with. And certainly this would be something where if you didn't have it in order from smallest to largest, you might miss a data point. Okay, so here's the same data. Here's the, by the way, this is supposedly the longest Burmese python ever captured in Florida. So anyway, we're talking about the quartiles, okay? So the quartiles of a data set divide the data into 4 equal parts. The median, being the center data point, is always the second quartile. The difference between the first quartile and third quartile is called the interquartile range. This is also called the IQR, and the IQR represents the middle half of the data. So we've got these same data points for snakes here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to find the quartiles and the interquartile range. Excuse me. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in order from smallest to largest. So 5, 6.25. Let's see, next would be 8, 10, 11, 12.5, 14, 15.5, 16.25, and 18.5. Okay, so I've got my data here. And let's kind of, there we go. Okay, so I crossed these out, but I don't want to mess up your notes, so I'm going to go ahead and erase those. The reason I crossed them out is so I wouldn't miss one. So, okay, here's my data set. So I need to know how many data points there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 data points. The first one I always find is is Q2. That's the middle one. So Q2 is going to be between the fifth and the sixth one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be between those two numbers. And so what you want to do is you want to find the median of that. So I'm going to take 11 plus 12.5 and divide that by 2. If there was an odd number of numbers here, I would just take the middle one. But with an even number, you take the 2 middle ones, you add them together and divide by 2. So this is going to be 23.5 divided by 2. And since it's late and I'm brain dead right now, 23.5 divided by 2 is going to be 11.75. Okay, so there's Q2. And that's going to go right here. So put Q2 right here. Now, I need to find Q1 and Q3. So Q1 will be the middle of the bottom half of the data. So Q1, there's 5 here. It's going to be the third one. There's Q1. Very simple to find. And then Q3 is going to be the middle of the top half of the data. There's 5 digits there, so that's going to be the middle one. That's Q3. Now there is a Q4, and Q4 is always the biggest one. That's Q4. The bottom one is not a Q, but it does have a name, and it's called the minimum. Okay. So there's my quartiles, and then the interquartile range. Remember, is the interquartile range is always Q3 minus Q1. So that's going to be 15.5 minus 8. So that's 7.5. Okay. So there we go. We found all the quartiles, and we found the interquartile range right there, which, by the way, remember is called the IQR, interquartile range. Okay. Oh, I forgot my dot plot. So, what happened to it? It's right here. Let's take this, and we're going to copy that, and we'll paste it here. Okay. So the dot plot below shows the top speeds for 12 sports cars. Find and interpret the range, the interquartile range, the mean, median, and mode. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write out all these numbers so that I can look at them better. So my smallest one is going to be 220. I've got two 230s. I've got two 240s. I've got a 245. I've got three 250s. I've got two 260s and a 270. Okay, there's my data. So there's 12 cars here, and so the Q2 is going to be between 6 and 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is going to be between here. This is going to be Q2. I'm going to have to calculate that. So that's going to be 245 plus 250 divided by 2. Okay, so 245 plus 250 divided by 2 is going to be 247.5, which I should have been able to do in my head, but not at this time of night. Okay, so there's Q2. Now, Q1, I'm going to take the bottom half of the data. There's 2, 4, 6 numbers there. It's going to be between 3 and 4. It's going to be 230 plus 240 divided by 2. That's going to be 235. Okay, so there's Q1. And then Q3 will be in the middle of the top half of the data right there. So it's going to be between there. It's going to be between 250 and 260. So 250 plus 260 divided by 2 is going to be 255. There's Q3. Q4 is going to be 270. The minimum is going to be 220. Now, my range, I haven't calculated my range yet, so my range will be 270, which is the fastest one of the data set, and 220, which is the smallest one, so that's going to be 50. There's my range. My interquartile range, my IQR, is going to be the difference between Q3 and Q1. So that's going to be 255 minus 235, which is going to be 20. So that's my IQR. Okay, and then, let's see, my mean. I haven't calculated my mean or my mode yet. Now, the mode is super easy. The mode is the one that occurs the most. That's going to be this one right here. So the mode is going to be 250. That's the only one that occurs 3 times. So I just have my mean left to find, which is the one that takes the most work. So remember, with our means, we add up all the data and we divide by how many there are. So 220 plus 230 plus 230 plus 240 plus another 240 plus 245 plus 3 250s plus 2 260s and a 270. So I add all that up. Let's see here. So the mean, when I add all that up, is going to be 2,945 divided by 12, because there's 12 data points. That's going to be 245.416 repeating. Okay, so that would go right about here, right about Q2. So, did I do everything? I found the mean, I found the median, I found the mode. Remember, the median is Q2. So we should probably label that as the median. Okay, we found Q1 and Q3 and Q4. We found the minimum. We calculated the IQR. So we've done everything that we were expected to here. Oh, we found the range as well. Okay. Pretty cool cars too, I might add. All right, how do you check for outliers? So an outlier is a number that's way outside your data range, okay? And there's actually a way to calculate it. You don't just kind of say, hey, that one looks big. Sometimes there are no outliers. Sometimes there's multiple outliers. So here's the way you calculate it. You calculate lower outliers by calculating the IQR, which was 20. Yeah, the IQR was 20 on this data set. Okay, and then you take Q1 and you subtract 1.5 times the IQR. So my data, Q1 was 235. So if I'm going to calculate lower ones, lower outliers, that's going to be 235 minus 1.5 times 20. Okay, so 1.5 times 20, that's 30. So 235 minus 30 would be 205. So any car that was under 205 would be a lower outlier. And there isn't one. The lowest one is 220. So there are no lower outliers on this. Okay, so next we want to see, is there an upper outlier? Okay, so how do you calculate the upper outlier? You take Q3 and you add 1.5 times the IQR. So Q3 was 255. So we're going to take 255 plus 1.5 times 20. But that's 30, so 255 plus 30 would be 285. So anything bigger than 285 would be an outlier. And since our biggest one is 270, there are no upper outliers either. So this one had no outliers at all. The data is pretty evenly spread out. When you get an outlier, you get one that's like way out here. Okay. So you're going to get to do problems 1 through 25, the odd ones. And I will see you guys in class. Have a great evening.